Go start YouTube now. Hello, YouTube. We are live. Peace, love, great gold. William. Okay, hold on. Let me bring up the comments. Hello, Storm. Storm Media Brothers on YouTube. Give you all a chance to come in. That's the only thing with the live broadcasts. You gotta wait for people to come in. Hold on. Let me just turn off the volume here. JM1106. Hello. Okay, so everyone, welcome and lighten up. Welcome. So, trying to set up some stream elements bot running elements. Okay. What the fuck does that mean? Is that my bot? I'm not using stream elements, so why is it leaving a comment? Thank you, JM. Thank you. Okay, I'm not running that bot. Keith. Hello, Keith. How are you doing? Computers together. Welcome, people. So just waiting for people to settle into the program here. So we can talk about our topic, and we're going to talk about. Hello, Jamie. We're going to talk about mobile as far as devices, OS 5G, and what it looks like in the future. Thank you, JM. Thank you. Okay, so I hope no one's gonna complain about the sound or the video or anything like that. You know, it's always like you're right in the middle, and everybody's gonna say the video you have no sound. I presume I have sound. I presume everything is running okay. So can you just confirm? Hello, Drac. Hello, Drac. So anyway, yes, I still have the Nexus 5 available. I still have a few of these. And if you also prefer to load Lineage OS instead of Linux, I can do that. So if you prefer Lineage OS, plain Lineage OS, we can do that as well. So for people who need Bluetooth and things like that. So you have an option. For the same device, you can load Lineage OS or Ubuntu. So the new ones I got, I haven't loaded anything yet, so I'll do that tomorrow. And then I'll put it on the store. That is variable. Maybe I'll put a couple as Lineage OS and a couple as Ubuntu, since I have 4. Everything running okay on YouTube. Thank you. Hello, Gigabeavis. Stalking horse. Okay, so welcome. So a little slower to start here on YouTube, but then YouTube picks up, and then YouTube is usually filled up more than Periscope if we're gonna go by trends here. And then Periscope starts and then slows down. Everything seems normal. Can I ask you something? Just curious to what you thought about SpaceX. Do I need to think about SpaceX, Drac? I drive by SpaceX. They have a booster rocket on the in front of the building. So if you drive by SpaceX, they have a booster thing over there. So to remind you that they are SpaceX. So there it is. It's right by the by an airport in the area. So they have their own. They're right next to the airport. Good evening, Double J. Somebody actually left a comment on. Somebody left a comment on one of my videos. I think it was the Lineage OS videos, and said, "Well, most of the stuff you're talking about here is somewhat correct, but something is wrong." And then this guy makes a comment about correcting my lack of knowledge, apparently, about GPS. I didn't know anything about GPS since, I've been using GPS since the 90s. And, yep. I have every sort of GPS device going all the way back. It's on my boat. And I've been using GPS for traveling and all that. And this guy was saying, I made a wrong statement in stating that GPS is less accurate than Wi-Fi triangulation. Uh, than Wi-Fi triangulation. And sorry, dude, I don't know where you got that information. You're completely wrong. I've been using GPS for a while, and I know for a fact that it's actually intentionally off, sometimes by 100 yards. Depends on the day. And they do that intentionally. Of course, it's an algorithm in the sky to make sure you don't ducking hit. You don't share your GPS positions to the enemy and drop a missile on a specific building in the U.S. So they obfuscate the GPS on purpose for civilian use. Only the military can use it exactly. So that it's never actually that accurate. Yet, if you can check a phone and a phone can find your position within 6 zucking feet, then you ought to think, why is it 6 zucking feet? Why is it accurate to 6 zucking feet? Is that the GPS? No, they don't allow civilian use to be precise to 6 zucking feet. That is not allowed. What they actually do is to use Wi-Fi triangulation to get your precise location, and Wi-Fi triangulation is based on the position of Wi-Fi routers. So, sorry, dude. I hate to be questioned about something that I know so much about. So, uh, I don't, some people make comments about some of my posts and think that I do this lightly and I make comments and I don't really know what I'm talking about. No, you're gonna find that every comment I make, even what you think could be a tinfoil hat comment, is actually well researched, and I know exactly what I'm talking about. Just like, for example, when I say that AT&T is sucking up all your data on the internet and looking for keywords at the AT&T peering stations, that's not a tinfoil hat commentary. That is based on actual uh, uh, journalism made by somebody else, and I pull that to make sure it's precise because I don't want to invent stuff like that. I don't invent things. Okay, no invention from me. Mine is pretty accurate. Does get rid of all the Android privacy? Does get rid of Android privacy problems? Does What does it get rid of? Lynch OS is a custom version of Android that you can load up to not have any Google apps if you wish. You can still load Google apps with it. What do you think about smartphone OEMs lately? Most of them are monetizing based on user tracking and analytics via bloatware system apps. Yes, that can happen. That can happen. That's why I don't use that. I use Linux. This is somebody made a comment too about a Linux phone, and somebody, this is Ubuntu Touch, which is actual Linux. Somebody said, oh, I believe it's YouTuber switch to Linux. So I just made sure I corrected him on that on a comment, and just to make it clear, Ubuntu Touch, it was originally made by Canonical, the makers of Ubuntu, and then they gave up the project in 1997, and they decided that they were not going to build mobile anymore, and they abandoned the project, and but it was open source, so a bunch of people, primarily the first guy to do it was I believe Marius is from Germany, and he was the first one to push forth the UB ports version. So they've been maintaining the Ubuntu Touch by a group called UB Ports, which is a soon to be German corporate foundation, and and uh, and so it's being maintained really by a small group of people, and it's completely open source. Uh, Graphics are much better tonight. I haven't changed anything, Drac, except that I changed the color of my jacket here and not wearing a sweater. So yes, when I have different colors, it actually affects the uh, the effects here. So I got to be careful because I was actually wearing a gray sweater, and then it I guess gray has a bit of green in it, and it doesn't work too well. Hello, Van. Hello, Mario. So, hello, people on YouTube. Let's see if I missed something. Hello, Jane. Jane Dagger. And there's Vic. Vic Zart is in two places here. Double J. What happens to a burner phone number? Do they circulate it again? Eventually, they do. They will. Double J. Yes, eventually, they will rotate the number again. Yes. You should know that. I mean, you go to your phone company to give you a phone number, and sometimes someone will call you because they have that number from somebody else. I look so Miami Vice. Wow, you make me sound like you know really old now. I look so Miami Vice, or maybe you're old if you're mentioning Miami Vice. No more jailbird orange shirt. Orange shirt's actually you're everywhere. Okay, the tech boy. Love. Thank you, the tech boy. Thank you. So we're gonna talk about all that, and we're gonna educate you because the point. Hello, Rebusted. The point of tonight's scope is to help you make a decision about what you're gonna do with your whole strategy with tech and mobile. And I don't want you to go run to the store and go to all the, Thanksgiving and Black Friday is going to come up. And you're going to go see all the gadgets and you're going to say, woo, I want to buy this, I want to buy that. And then that could lead you to the wrong direction. And we want to make sure that I guide you to where this is going. And then you can make a choice and see if maybe you don't want to do that. Is it okay to call forward to that phone? To which phone? You want to call forward to a burner phone, or you want to call forward to the to this? Well, you can call forward to this. So no soy mexicano. What are you then? If you're not mexicano, are you está americano? So my new number was tied to a group text, and they were too dumb to know how to stop sending me text. 5G's gonna eradicate us all. Okay, so I'm at Radio Shack, gonna make my own cell phone. Maybe we'll make this. As you know, I use this for making Wi-Fi's, but bet you can make a phone with a Raspberry Pi. I looked at the parts, and they're mostly 2G. They don't have any 4G. But maybe we can convert a Raspberry Pi into a phone. I bet you we can do that. Somebody's going to make the parts. How phone cloning possible like movies? You can do that, yes. You can duplicate it's illegal as heck. You go to Zucking jail. The one that was an expert at cloning phones was somebody. You can clone SIM cards. It's very easy. You buy the machine from China, and you can. Somebody said you can even do it in India. Yeah, you can buy the machine, and you can duplicate a SIM card. So yes, that's very very easy to do. So, but that only duplicates the IMSI, which is the SIM card number. You can't actually duplicate the IMEI, which is the built-in number on the phone. It's like a serial number, so you can't change that. You probably can change it if you have the internal instructions for whoever makes the phone, and I bet you just tap stuff on the keyboard and it programs the IMEI. So I bet you that's how it's done, and then you could do it. But you do it, and you will be like Kevin Mitnick. The feds will hunt you down. And I think they, when they arrested Kevin Mitnick, they said, because you've been changing all these IMEIs, each one has a prison term of 20 years. And since you did it X number of times, you'll be in prison forever. So anyway, they kept him in prison for 5 years. Then after 5 years, he became a consultant. In fact, he was making money when he was in jail. and he became a consultant, and now he's a cybersecurity specialist. Hello, Vel Logan, and so he's a cybersecurity specialist now. So he's making money from that. Rich in Texas. So Mario, how are you liking the Ubuntu? Mario was telling me how he was enjoying the Ubuntu. I've shipped quite a few of these already to many people, and including me. I mean, I use it. And your landlord is wearing an ankle bracelet. Oh my gosh, Van. Maybe you should change residence. So anyway, I ever since I've been using this, I've been like really really pleased with myself because I'm like saying again tonight, Apple nor Google nor anyone else, including three-letter agencies, did not know where I went for dinner and did not know what I spent on dinner. So it just makes me feel good. It just does. It just does. Yeah. If you feel like you want to feel safe but you do not want to use Ubuntu Touch because of the limitations of the phone side of this, because of Bluetooth. So if you really need to use Bluetooth, then maybe you want to use Lineage OS instead. I can load Lineage OS on this as well. And then you just don't put any Google apps. Hello, Joe. I was just watching your scope, Joe. I'm looking for a new place, but I might just live in the truck. You're gonna be like everyone in Silicon Valley, living in their. You said Google about my phone voice activated. There you go. No soy mexicano. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, my friend. How are you doing? I wear a jacket and then suddenly people say, "Oh, you look snappy." Seems like I've been using embedding messages on Zuck phone to check it. Proxy, proxy, proxy. What does that mean, Angel Service? Okay, so have you heard of Copperhead OS? Yes, it's a custom Android phone like Lineage OS, but it's focused on security. I've heard of that Jig and Gigabeavis, and you heard of Graphene OS, Copperhead OS, and so on. I don't actually believe they're actually doing anything for privacy. Maybe security, but not privacy. In which case, that's not really important to me. I don't put any data on the phone. I don't really care about the cybersecurity side of this. If there's a password, that's all it needs. And then if you steal it, you're not going to get anything out of it. Want to steal my phone? Go ahead. There's nothing in it. Okay, I don't put any live data on it. There are no naked pics in here. There's nothing on my phone. Don't be so mean to Big Brother, Rob. You miss you so much while you're out for dinner. Yeah, so I'm glad that I'm not subject to that. And I'm gonna tell you, to some of you, this is gonna be impossible. Impossible for you to let go of your Zucking iPhone, especially if you are on Zucking Periscope. The chances of you giving up your iPhone or your Android is about zero. How do you stop Bixby on the phone? Sam, hi Sam. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a pain. It's like saying, how do you stop Siri? How do you stop Cortana? So it's pain in the butt. Rob is a thug. So anyway, Gigabeavis, I think that most of this OEM or custom ROMs for Android are pretty much all the same, and they can be okay if you do not load Google apps. So it's kind of intermediate. This is trackerless. So what I'm using here is Linux. By default, Linux doesn't have anything. So there's really absolutely nothing to track here. I don't even have location on. I go to YouTube here. I don't have any location, and I'm even running a VPN on it. You don't have to, but I'm running a VPN on this, and it pretty much there's just nothing. It's addicting. Yes, Joe, you cannot give it up because you are Zucking Broadcasting. Stuck at 80%. What is stuck at 80%? So yes, it's going to be hard for you to make a decision that says I'm going to dump any one of these devices. But I'm going to tell you, think about this as saying, can you do it a bit of the time? Because you can always bring your iPhone and your Android, just turn it off, and then this is the one you leave on. This is where you put your phone calls, and then on the other one you just use Wi-Fi on it. And if you do that, you might you might discover something here, and because every day that I go out, and I've been using this for a few weeks now, and this is all I bring. I actually don't bring anything else. So when I go out and go to do my daily activities, there's just this feeling like they think I'm at home. This iPhone is not going to tell me you are 200 feet from your car. You are 3 minutes from your destination. And I said, "Suck you." Fortunately, too, my car has, you know, a uh, navigation on it. Redunculus. My car has the navigation on, so I don't actually need to use a phone for navigation. Rob wants us to become addicted to our own privacy. Let's do it. In fact, phones have lost their traditions a bit. So anyway, let's talk about the future. I mean, where are we going here, and where are we going in the short-term future? Because some of us had some expectations that something was actually going to break in 2019, and we're going to all have Linux phones. Everyone thought that in 2019 we'll all be walking around with Linux phones. Instead, we have old devices with Linux phones, and I told you that I bought a Librem 5, and people are actually leaving comments, negative ones, about the Librem 5 and about purism. I'm not. You're not going to hear a negative comment from me. I know how hard it is to make. Hello, Mr. H. Lavelle Logan. Yes, it's in my store. You can get the few I have of these. I only have a few of these at a time because I never know if I'm going to sell it. So I have a few of these running Linux right now. So if you want a safe phone that doesn't have any kind of tracking, I have them. This is a Nexus 5, 32 gigabytes. How to get Linux system on cell phones. Where can I look for it? I have a video where you can install it yourself if you are kind of techie. Otherwise, I've been installing it on a few and putting it in my store for those who want it and don't want to do the labor. But I made it easy for you. If you're a techie, you can install it yourself. And the two devices that you can install Linux on at the moment are a Nexus 5 and a OnePlus One. And so if you want one, get a Nexus 5 or a OnePlus One, and you can program it yourself if you have the if you can follow the video. It's a little bit techy, and if you don't want to do that, then I can do it for you. I just charge $99 for my time to do it. So if you want to have me do it, that's fine. People think I'm like here trying to make money off you guys, and this was actually done as a request. One of you came to me and said, "Could you do it for me?" And I said, "Sure, I'll do it for this much." And then everyone wanted one. So I've sold a few of these. It's just a part-time thing that it's not enough to make a living on. But if you don't want to spend the time, I can help you by installing it. So normally I load Ubuntu Touch on it, which is Linux. It's not Android. There's nothing Android about this. Apparently there is a way to run Android apps on here. There's a container that you can run called Nbox, and then in theory you can run some Android apps on it. So I haven't tried it. I think it's a little bit difficult to do and probably unstable. So I'm not trying it because I don't really want any app. It has to be Nexus 5. You can only do it at the moment on a Nexus 5 and a OnePlus One. So that's the only thing they have drivers for. Some people are testing OnePlus 3 and a Sony Xperia and so on, but they're not perfect yet. Some of them have problems with the camera. or problems with Bluetooth, or problems with Wi-Fi. So there are a few models that other people are working on, but those are the models. The ones that Nexus 4 also works. If you have a Nexus 4, where do you get a fantastic phone like that? Anyway, I have a few of these in my store. So I buy some a week, and then I sell. The only ones that I've been able to get cheap have been Nexus 5s. So the only one I have is a Nexus 5. So anyway, going back to what I expected in 2019, and in fact, we were all wrong. We thought that in 2019 we would all be able to have a Linux phone and actually do desktop Linux on the phone, and all that, and run it like a normal Linux distro. And Mr. H, yes, Mr. H. So we thought we were going to be able to run a Linux distro on a phone, and the fact of the matter is that the first company that was supposed to release a Linux phone, to be honest, sounds like they got delayed, and I wish you had a store in Los Angeles. My store is online. Why does my store have to be in Los Angeles? It's online. Nobody has physical stores anymore. Retta. Hello, Retta. Master Scoper Retta is here. Famous Scoper Retta is here. We have a big shot. Big shot in town. Retta is here. Because I live there, I'm screwed. Now I'll always be watch five Fuzzboy. Quick. Hello, Retta. Retta. Follow Retta, guys. If you're on Periscope. See, I forget what platform I'm on. Follow Retta if you are on Periscope. So anyway, so I thought that by now here in late 2019 that people like Reddit would be saying, "Hey, I can buy Linux phone in the store, and everyone can buy a Linux phone. Even Ron Waxman can buy a Linux phone." And fortunately, here we are. Here we are in 2019, the end of 2019, and who actually knows if anyone actually even got a Librem 5? So I got informed of when I'm going to get my Librem 5, and it was expected. I wasn't shocked. And knowing what the problems are of the Librem 5 as they were making it, I'll tell you why they had problems. And I understand, and I kind of expected it, so it's no real big shock. So my Librem 5 that I paid $720 for will be available and start shipping only in April. So I have to wait till April to get it. April to May. I don't really actually know when I'm gonna get it. So April. So because of that, I'm actually thinking that most of the Linux activity on phones will actually probably be commonplace maybe in late 2020. So we may have a year before we actually have many choices, not many, but choices when it comes to Linux phones, and competitors to iOS and Android. So I'll educate you a little bit to what's available today, so in case you didn't know. There are a few choices today. So I'll give you some general categories of new choices. We don't have to talk about old choices that are not sold anymore. So we don't need to talk about BlackBerry. So yes, so I still have a BlackBerry, and I put it up in the store for sale for anyone who wants that. And it's great as a basic phone with 3G that has good texting and good voice with good Bluetooth. So if you want that, and you can play music on it. In fact, I just found this SD card I had on it to play music on it, and it's good for my car, and that's fine for that phone. But we're going to talk about what is available to you, what choices you have, because the choices, people are actually looking for choices, and the choices they don't want are just iOS and Android. It looks like only influencers have gotten their Librem 5. The Linux Gamer has one. No, Gigabeavis, incorrect. Gardner has no Linux phone. He has no Librem 5. Gigabeavis, you are incorrect. You are incorrect. Thank you, AMG. Thank you, AMG. Thank you. That is so kind of you. So, Jigabivas, no. The Linux Gamer demoed and made a video of the Librem 5. He managed to touch two of them, but they were being held by the CEO Todd Weaver, and he didn't get left with one, so he actually does not have a Linux phone. So maybe he's evergreen like the rest of us. Evergreen is the E shipment, so A, B, C, D, E. I'm on E. E is slated for the end of the second quarter, so end of the first quarter. So April. So that's where I'm slated to get mine, and I ordered this summer. So most people are on that batch. So the majority of people are going to get it in April. And the reason that's true, that's happening, is, and I don't know why some people need to be so, you know, so angry with purism, because I understand what it takes to make hardware. I make some hardware too. I make this alarm system, for example. And if you look inside here, I can tell you that, I hand soldered the circuit boards on here. I designed the circuit boards, hand soldered, and made all the circuit boards for, well, this has no circuit board, but wiring. Uh, but this alarm has a circuit board on it, and that was kind of hard to make. And given the problems that I know exist on the making of a phone, uh, it's really hard, and they're finding that there are issues, and not just on the hardware, but even on the software. The software is still pretty basic. I mean, they really only are saying we have texting, we have messaging, and phones, and there's not a lot of other apps on there. So, in fact, guys like me want to make apps for the Librem 5, but I don't have one, so I don't have anything to work with. If I had a phone, I could make the app. So a lot of these are just going to have to wait, and it's new. Making a phone, apparently, as they found out, is very, very difficult. The reason that Android phones are so popular and so common is because all the circuit boards are actually all the same. So when somebody buys a Android phone, they build them in the gazillions. They can make it in batches of, I don't know, 100 million. So they make circuit boards in that kind of quantity. So it doesn't matter that they design some complex circuitry, because it's all done at once. So when you're making a Librem 5 phone and you're only planning on shipping it to 10,000 people, no one's going to pay attention to you, and you can't get any custom board. And yet, anyone can come up with an Android version, because all you have to do really is buy the circuitry, the motherboard for the phone, put a nice case on it, pick the display, pick a few things, and then adjust the software a little bit, and there you have it. You have a phone. So they don't have to do much. Most of the work has been done with Android. One of the reasons Android has succeeded is because Android actually dictates the hardware standard. Android actually dictates it. You're going to use the hardware in this. You're going to build hardware to these specs. So the hardware has to be these specs, and you don't get any variation to it. This is why the cell modem and all that is always built into the motherboard. All that is within the specs of Android, and they don't really get a choice. And because of that, then Android devices pretty much all work alike. And the only difference is some are more expensive because they use faster chips or more memory. Other than that, they're all the same. They're all the same. So can you imagine somebody like Samsung, how much money they make on these phones, because they're mass production. Mass production. New sub. Hello, change your name again. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Change my name again. Thank you. Appreciate it. So anyway, So there are many options. There are few. Sorry, there are very few options when it comes to phones, because there's one category, and that's Android. And with Android, they're all using the same board, same chip, same hardware, same flaws, same Wi-Fi triangulation, same baseband, all made by Qualcomm in the U.S. with the same Wi-Fi triangulation chip. Same with the iPhone with the Broadcom Wi-Fi triangulation, all built in. All of the other tracking is all built into the same iPhones. And every year, the only thing they change is let's change the CPU and things like that. But the phone itself is, and because they sell, you know, hundreds of millions of the phones, and they made they make like what, a billion phones a year, billion phones a year. So we can change phones. Most of the world can change phones every couple of years. So, and that's the world we live in now. We're really controlled by these devices. These devices have overtaken computers in such a big way. Now, how many people use Windows or Mac or Linux compared to how many people use Android? I mean, it's shocking proportions. Okay, shocking. So, the ratio is like, it puts Windows to shame. Windows used to be used by every computer, and now who cares about Windows now? Everybody uses Android. Android isn't the only choice, and certainly not iOS. So, in some countries, they're using a OS called KaiOS, KAIOS. And yes, it's used mostly in Chinese phones. So, if you don't know what KaiOS is, and you buy a phone and it's KaiOS, so KaiOS is, and I don't know how to pronounce that. So somebody will say, you didn't pronounce it right. Maybe it's pronounced in some Chinese way. I have no zucking idea. But anyway, I'm going to pronounce it KaiOS since I've never heard it pronounced. But KaiOS is not from China. KaiOS is actually a project that started with Firefox. So Firefox started to do what Ubuntu tried to do, which is make a mobile phone OS. And they gave it up, just like Ubuntu Canonical gave up on Ubuntu Touch. Firefox gave up on mobile, and so they gave up on their OS, and they came up with and some people took the source code, which was open source, and turned it into KaiOS. Now, because KaiOS is actually based on Firefox, the actual reality is it's actually pretty safe by default because of where it came from. It came from Firefox. It's not an Android. It's not an Android fork. It didn't come from Android. So, is this where I get to bash 5G? You bash 5G all you want. So KaiOS is actually, if you get a KaiOS, which is typically they put it only on basic phones. It's a way to make cheap phones and without a lot of features. And typically flip phones are going to have KaiOS. KaiOS can actually run on in theory, it can run on a normal phone if they have a driver for it. And if you get a phone with KaiOS and you're going to ask me if it's safe, in general you can expect that KaiOS will be safe. There are no apps on it. The apps are all web apps. So it's just a browser. It's basically Firefox. So it's a Firefox with a phone interface. So it's basically safe, and it's fairly limited. And because of its limited use, you don't really need to worry about it too much. So KaiOS is very low end, and it's very popular with low end phones. If you're in China, India, where people want low end phones, then they're available and they're cheap and they're fairly safe. And so I'm not going to, hello, contradiction. So I'm not going to criticize KaiOS because I don't think it falls into the same category as an Android. It has no connection to Google. It has no Google apps, no nothing. So in fact, I don't think it's connected to anything. So because of that, I'm going to say, I actually don't know if KaiOS people actually track you. So there's stuff we don't know in there, but I believe KaiOS is open source. So so I think it should be fairly safe. So if you have a phone using KaiOS and you want to use it because it's cheap, I'm saying go ahead, use that. That's an option. That's an option. So that it's not the prettiest option and not the most productive option, but it's an option. Now, if you're going to ask me, should I use KaiOS versus Linux? Well, Linux is actually different because and this is the difference with Linux. I think that's different than even Android. The idea is, and mind you, this is a little bit of theory. If this has not yet been executed, but the theory with using Linux, and this is kind of the future of mobile that is kind of exciting if it can actually happen, is that the Linux operating system on the phone will be the same on the phone and same on your desktop. And by the way, I have fully shifted to Linux now. My entire daily driver is completely Linux. I stopped using Windows and I stopped using Mac some time ago, and I shifted to Windows. And I don't even hello Jane, my friend. So I don't even use Windows anymore. I managed to shift 100% to Linux for everyday use. And the only actual time I'm using my Windows computer is to make YouTube videos because I need Adobe Premiere Pro, which runs only on Windows. So I don't have a choice. I'm using that. But other than that, I'm using Linux. At the moment, I'm doing some programming in GNOME, so I'm using Ubuntu at the moment. I'm planning on installing Manjaro GNOME on it too as well. So I'm doing programming in GNOME. So I need that. I'm not going to use hello Jane. I'm not going to use something that doesn't use GNOME because I'm programming for it. Okay, so I'm going to tell you. Maybe I'll make a video about my shifting to Linux. And for those of you who don't know this, I've been using Linux for I think I was in the corporate world running Windows servers, enterprise servers. I was in a business that required me to be in Windows, and we were a Microsoft partner, and I'm running big operations with thousands of computers all running Windows, and I was doing that since 2012. I stopped doing that in 2012 and changed direction. Since 2012, all of my servers, I shifted to Linux servers. So all of my servers, for everything I do, including all my apps, are all Linux. We're all Linux since then. But I have not used Linux desktop. I use Linux servers command line. I'm very comfortable with the Linux command lines. I have tons of servers. I've set up, thousands of Linux servers. So sometimes I have to set up one, several a day. So I Linux servers, not counting these are Linux servers. Okay, Raspberry Pis. The Raspberry Pi in here is running Linux. So this is a Linux server itself. But I'm talking about the big servers I have on the cloud. So all of those are all running Linux. So I've been using Linux servers for a while, but I've never actually spent time seeing if I can run desktop like 100%. Could I run a GUI Linux desktop and do programming and doing all that? And yeah, my favorite Linux editor. I use Nano for command line, but for non-command line, hold on. Signal kind of slowed down there. Signal okay? Signal dropped there. So yeah, I'm using Nano for command line, but for most users, I use the IDE that comes with a programming language. So for example, I use NetBeans for programming, and I use for Python I use PyCharm. So they have their own editors, and that's what I normally use for editing on a day-to-day basis. Ubuntu comes with something called text editor for GUI. But if I'm on a command line, I'm using Nano. I don't usually use Vim. Can you install GNOME on any distribution with a single terminal command. I've not installed GNOME from scratch. I've installed LXDE and mostly LXDE. In fact, I installed LXDE on this. I've actually never installed GNOME, manually. So I presume it's just simple thing. But these are usually a lot of things you have to tweak. So uh, so no experience with it, so I don't want to tell you something I don't actually know. I've never done it. Everything I've had already comes with GNOME. So like Ubuntu comes with GNOME, and you can install Manjaro with GNOME. So I'm going to install Manjaro as well. I don't use BSD. BSD is Unix, not Linux. So BSD is not Linux. So why do I need to be on Unix? I've been on Unix. I was on Unix in the 90s. Even before the 90s, I was on Unix. So do I need to be on Unix? No. Uh, Unlike what many think, the lightest DE is KDE written in pure C. That's true, Rebus. That's true, but which is not really material to me because my intent is just compatibility. I just try and make apps. So so it's made by it's GNOME is made by GNU. So and it's what's being used on the Librem 5. So I'll try that, and because then you have to learn a new set of things for Linux. It's for a different desktop environment. Anyway, going back to what I'm talking about with phones, the idea is, could you install, and this is very different, could you install a Linux operating system on a phone and have it run the same as desktop? And I'm going to tell you that even Ubuntu Touch, the way they installed it on the Linux phone, they actually tried to copy Android. So it's very restrictive on the phone. It's actually not, this is actually not as free and flexible as using desktop Linux. So I'm going to tell you, you're going to run some commands. One of the first things I did was go to terminal on this, and go into the normal folders and start looking at the files. And then the first command I'm going to run is sudo nano and then a file name. And first thing that happens is nano fails. So the first thing I run on the phone, the first thing I would do on the desktop using nano to see what the file looks like, and it fails. And why does it fail? Because it's so locked down. The phone is made to, everything is read only. So then there's so much you have to learn about how they configure this. It's not like your normal Linux distro. Everything is locked down. It's almost just like Android, the way they built this, which is not what I think they did with the Librem 5. So I'm still curious what they actually did with Librem 5, because Librem 5 is running pure OS and it doesn't have this kind of limitations. So I would be more comfortable with the Librem 5 because I can screw it up. This one does not let you screw it up. It's so locked down that I can't do any. I actually don't like that. I like it like the old MS-DOS, where you can just go anywhere and do whatever you want and figure everything out. Do you also need a compatible display manager if you don't have one installed? Display manager for Linux, you mean? This one can use a USB OTG, I believe, on-the-go connector for a display. So a OTG display, I think you can attach this to a display and Bluetooth keyboard. I've actually never I don't have one of those, and I haven't had the patience to try it yet. But I have gone in here using terminal. So I went on actually went inside one of these and started to poke around, and the first thing I noticed was everything would read only. So the first thing I had to do to really investigate what the phone had, I had to go in there and and learn how to remount it and take the read only out. So now it's one more thing you got to do that I've never done on Linux is to remount the thing and mount it with read write, and then see how they organize it. And what happened was all of the apps on a Ubuntu Touch phone are actually kept in another area, which is different from what you would find on a desktop. In a desktop, the apps are all mixed in the etc folder, and then a directory, and they put all the apps in there. Not with this. This is actually has an area called user data, and then they put all the apps and all the app files on there, which is really messy because it's so inconsistent with how I perceive Linux to be used. So I there's a lot of like learning a lot of procedures and so on that I didn't like. And the other thing that you'll find if you actually want to use this as a desktop, this Ubuntu phone as a desktop, it's really not that easy to do it. The reason is it actually runs something called Unity, and it's not really compatible with GNOME. So they have a container where you can install normal desktop apps. Let's say you want to load I tried it with Firefox. So I loaded Firefox on this. Thinking, okay, let me load a desktop app called Firefox and see if it will run just like it does on Linux. And I ran it on here, and it's so fucking slow because there's no native display driver. It has to go to a translation of the display driver to what is used on Unity. So this is not the way it's going to work on the Librem 5. So to be honest with you, I prefer the Librem 5 software. If that comes out, if I can run the Librem 5 software called Pure OS and run that on a Pine phone, I'd be much happier for my use because I want to, really delve into it. I can't really do that on this. This is locked down. Ubuntu Touch is a locked down phone interface made to do simple things, pretty much made for ordinary people. So if you want to be an advanced player, this prevents you from doing anything advanced. So that's the part I don't like about it for playing. It's, as a privacy phone, it's fine. I'm only talking about it from my, me, I'm kind of techie, so I want to really get into it and dig in. And, I'm a very advanced programmer, so I can go in there and do my own apps. And it's very hard to do it on an Ubuntu phone. So, I'll tell you some of my problems. I couldn't even get the VPN to work on Ubuntu Touch. So I couldn't get the VPN to work on this. and then I examined the files. I saw the comments on the forums for UBport, and they described some problems with the VPN. And it took me a while to figure out what the bug was, and then I found what the bug was. There is a bug, and so in order to override the bug, you actually have to go in to command line and do it by command line. And then once I understood that, then it's no problem. I understand exactly what it's doing now. And there was a bit of learning, and I just wish it wasn't locked down so much, so I could have easily done that. On a Linux desktop, if you have a VPN, it's so simple to do. If you don't have to deal with an interface, it's so simple to do VPN on a command line. But on devices like this, it's like they hide it. I don't like that. I don't like hiding it. You'd also need GPU to render desktop apps on phones. No, you don't need that on here. It does come with a GPU anyway, so I don't know what the comment means. It does have a GPU. All phones have a GPU. It's just why you see a lot of web apps because of difficult to develop apps for Ubuntu Touch. Yes, there's no development needed for web apps because it's a browser. So you can develop web apps, but the problem with Linux is that unfortunately, Linux is a disjointed platform. There isn't like a commonality like in say, Android AOSP is pretty much the same as Android from Google. They use the same displays. All apps can run the same way and so on. So there's a lot of similarities there. But you cannot run Mac apps on iOS, and you can't run iOS apps on a Mac. Well, on Linux, they make this is the same Linux here. It's actually different programming for a different desktop environment. Mecca's Queen from Mace Landing, New Jersey. Uh, so it's different actually on Linux because you have to program to two desktop environments for the most part. One is for GNOME and the other one is for KDE. So it's or to be more precise, one is using GTK, is the graphics library you got to use, and the other group uses something called Qt, and which is kind of messy that you have to do that. It's I don't know why it got split like that, but that's the freedom of Linux. Linux is very free, so people do everything they want, and that's why there's a million distros. So that is kind of the plus and minus of Linux, and that probably is slowing it down because if it's hard to develop apps for it, then it's a little bit difficult to make it in volume. But that's not to say it can't be done, because making apps for iOS is even more difficult. It's very difficult to make an iOS app. Okay, so I've been developing iOS apps for a long time, and it's actually very tedious to make uh, iOS apps because just like what I'm talking about here, they hide everything. They hide everything, so you actually don't know what's going on, and I don't like that. I want everything to be exposed, and I don't want to be guessing. I want a structure of a OS to be clear, and that was my expectation for the future. Maybe not today. I know you can run GTK apps on KDE, but you have to load things and their dependencies, and I don't even know if they all are going to run well. So I'll find out. I have a GTK app, Gigabeavis. I'll try it. So it's something that I have to learn. Library dependencies shouldn't create a problem. It's just another pain. So anyway, installing stuff. CLI is a good habit. It's so efficient. Yeah. If they're all using the same commands, but no, you got to go guess. And some say, well, you can't. Some are controlled as far as where you get the files. On Linux, you are kind of tied to the distro maker as far as where the apps come from. So you just on a Debian kind of device like Ubuntu and so on, you just say apt get install and whatever, right? But then you will find that the versions may not be the versions you want. Like I found some versions are very old. If you use just your standard apt get install on Ubuntu, so then you have to do all these little games and do PPAs and this and that. It's so many little things, and sometimes you don't have time to remember all this. I am not. Hey, switch to Linux. How are you doing? You want to ask your question? Switch to Linux, and I'll educate you a little bit on what you don't know. But I don't like that. The fact that's why I don't. To be honest, I told you I've been using Linux since I've been a big Windows guy since forever, and Microsoft partner and all that, and so I was big on my all of my enterprise clients were all running Windows until I left that business in 2012, and so from that point I was big on everything Microsoft, and in 2013 that's when I went 100% on Linux servers. So my experience has been with servers, but let me tell you, I am lazy. I don't like having to learn a new set of command line commands because it's so hard to research this. So I stuck to one. I made my first Linux server was a Debian server, and I've used Debian since. Somebody will complain, why are you using Debian? Why not using why are you not using Arch? Why are you not using all these other ones? And it's like because I don't have the patience to go relearn it. If it's doing the job, then I don't want to have to relearn anything. I didn't even use Ubuntu. I used Debian only. I didn't use Ubuntu. Recently, I've been using more Ubuntu, but to be honest, all my servers were originally Debian. So anyway, I don't like having to which kernel is currently running your Nexus, which Linux kernel. I don't know which Linux kernel it's using. It's whatever Ubuntu 16.04 was using. So I'm sure you can find it. It's running on a base of Ubuntu 16.04. You can still install software from a tarball if necessary. Yes, Gigabeavis, go find out where you find those sucking tarballs. Okay, and that's the lack of consistency. Well, I guess it's not different in Windows, but it's just issues. Okay, so guys, switch to Linux. Here is a major YouTuber, and you can if you are not subscribed to him, you can follow him on Linux thing. He's looks like he's been on YouTube more longer than I have. But anyway, Switch to Linux had a question on. He made a couple of comments that I thought deserved some discussion, and one of them is the Librem 5 CPU. Because the problem switch to Linux is, to be honest with you, I get hammered by that same group on Reddit. They look at my videos, and some of them have I don't have a Reddit account, so I get to read their comments about me, but I don't get to respond. So some of them, they're really nasty over there. Nasty. I mean, debate me if you want, but I can't debate you in a place I'm not in. So I just go in there and see my video has a lot of comments, and sometimes I'll respond to them on my video, but I'm not gonna go set up a Reddit account. Definitely not. I'm very restrictive on what platforms I'm on for privacy reasons. So in any case, they're kind of nasty on that Reddit page. Switch to Linux. So and they're very focused on criticizing purism and all that. And I understand the if you've been waiting years for this thing, and if you're waiting years to get your Librem 5 phone and you're not getting it, then you're going to be frustrated. And some people dedicate their lives to all the negativity, but I think 90% of people don't care about that, and that includes me. I understand it's very difficult with making a phone. I understand the technical difficulties, and I just want to leave them alone, and I'll judge them when I get the phone, or either that or they go out of business, whichever. I'll judge them then, but at the moment I don't have much choice. Plasma Mobile, I think, is based on AOSP, and I did not use Ubuntu Touch. I don't think Plasma Mobile is based on AOSP. Plasma Mobile is also a Linux desktop. It's a Linux desktop. Plasma Mobile is I think it's a Qt based Linux thing, but they're gonna be sharing the Purism library called libhandy with that platform. So hopefully then there'll be some consistency. Anyway, so Switch to Linux made a comment on his video, and I since I studied this in my other video, I don't want to just say this. So he was saying that somebody criticized the chip used by Purism on the Librem 5, and they said it was that they were using an IoT, Internet of Things chip for a phone, and you shouldn't be using an IoT chip for the phone. I don't think that's a correct comment, and I don't know who said that. There are many phones using the same A53 chip. That's actually a common chip on Android. In fact, I believe it's the same chip used on the Nexus, maybe Nexus 4. I don't think it's this one, but one of the Nexuses we're using the same A53 chip. My actual problem is, switch to Linux. My actual problem is I am not sure that chip is powerful enough. They actually measured against the Raspberry Pi, and the Raspberry Pi was only slightly slower And I said, Zoc, I know how slow Raspberry Pi is. I got many Raspberry Pis here. I mean, I got a ton of Raspberry Pis. I've multiple right in front of me here, and I was a little worried. I'm paying $720 for something that's a CPU that's a fraction. Is it even going to be 10% the speed of an iPhone 10? That worried me. And I'm worried enough about the Pine phone, which is even slower than that. But I'm actually worried about, is the $720 phone fast enough? Because that, I think, is a big deal. For some, if you're going to pay that much, you hope the CPU is a little bit better. So I don't know. That's a worry. That's a worry. Uh, uh, Last time I researched it was over 2 years ago. Oh no, switch to Linux. No, not blaming you. I'm here to tell you the results of my research. Certainly no blaming you. We don't know a lot of this before. It's just because it's kind of my specialty now is to research this. So I researched that and actually compared the CPU. I actually looked at benchmarking between a similar CPU, which is the one used on the Pine phone, the Pine 64, which is there's actually benchmarks on the Pine 64 and a Raspberry Pi, and CPU itself was only a little bit faster, but the memory was what made the big difference. The memory on a Raspberry Pi is slow, so because the CPU itself wasn't that fast on a Pine 64. And it uses the same A53 Cortex chip that's being used on the Librem 5, with a couple differences. One difference is on the Librem 5, it was clocked a little bit higher, not much more, but a little bit higher, like maybe 20% faster in clock speed. And the Librem 5 had a coprocessor, so it had a secondary chip on there. So there was a coprocessor. There was a quad core and there's another coprocessor. So it's like having an extra core. I don't know what the core does, probably some I/O stuff. So the extra core is doing something. That's the only difference between the Librem 5 and the Pine phone. And I was actually surprised because here's a Pine phone that they're planning on charging $149, and the Librem 5 is planned on that I bought for $720 with tax, and for that I'm getting a chip that's only slightly better than the Pine phone. So that does bother me. But the software, now this is the part that I'm really looking forward to. The software on the Librem 5 is based on Pure OS, and Pure OS is not locked down like the Ubuntu Touch Linux. This is so locked down. Okay, I mean, just go to the terminal and do your normal, go look at all the different expected folders and networks and all that, and it's like so locked down, and it's so hard to find things because they actually moved everything that needs setting and moved it to a different directory. So they have instead of your usual directory where you find all your settings. For example, on a typical desktop, let's say your network is at etc network interfaces. You're not going to find that there. And then you got to search. Where the zuck did you keep this? And then you have to find out that everything is kept in a user data folder, and the rest is read only, except for the user data folder. And that's where they keep anything that a user might set, including networks. You have to look for them in user data. So it's like relearning something new, which gets kind of a pain. I don't think Pure OS is made that way. Pure OS, the point of Pure OS switch to Linux was they actually said that this will work just like the desktop, so there are not as many restrictions. If that is true, then I will be much happier. Not happy about FinTech conference just gone in Singapore. A global number for the world pigs voices recognition and how behavior recognition. Wow, really? So anyway, these are to me, in the future, if I can actually have a Linux phone that actually behaves like a desktop, and I don't care if I can screw it up, I can always reinstall it. If I can actually get a Linux phone that behaves more like the simplicity of a desktop install, that would be great. I just this this lockdown mentality is something along the lines of Apple and Microsoft. I don't want anything locked down. It irritates me. Okay, so it's a power user should be able to get around the lockdown. Not these. These are. Can you imagine in the future if we actually have a competitor where phones are actually the same operating system on desktop as it is on the phone? I mean, can you imagine the simplicity if that actually happens? And if you're a techie and you understand it one way and you don't have to memorize a whole new different scheme, wouldn't that be nice if that's the case? I'm hoping for that, and I think that's going to happen in the future. Will people go for it, or will they say, "Well, we don't want that. We want our iOS and Android"? It's going to be hard for most people to shift. I understand. It's not really yours. It's locked down. So that's my point. It's the Librem 5, and that's why this is kind of important if that actually succeed. And I don't mean purism itself. I mean, if purism doesn't succeed, then hopefully PinePhone or somebody else succeeds. But if we succeed in putting Linux, a regular Linux, not as locked down as Ubuntu Touch, but a regular Linux, and this is my disappointment with Ubuntu Touch, it's too locked down. Again, this is not, for privacy reasons, this is fine. If you want a privacy phone, the Ubuntu Touch is fine. That is not where I'm coming from here. I'm coming from a techie point of view. I just am thinking more about this thing called convergence, where they want phones and desktops and everything to run the same OS. Boy, if that happens, the world will change. I mean, that's going to change everything. If you can say, well, I don't have to do anything different on a desktop versus a phone. Because you might ask yourself, how come there's no Android on a desktop? Why can't they run Android on a desktop? And the reason is Android is so locked down, just like iOS is so locked down. Why isn't there iOS on your desktop Mac? Why don't they sell iOS on a desktop? Because there's no file system. How are you going to use a file system on iOS? It doesn't have that. I think you're forgetting we're just paying for the privilege of using their system product. I'm not forgetting that. It's very frustrating, JM. I'm not forgetting it, and that's the point. It's frustrating. So anyway, so that's I'm looking at this, and I'm heartened by. I watched your entire video. Switch to Linux. What's your first name? Switch to Linux. Just so I don't have to call you Switch to Linux. I'm Rob, so that's easy. uh, uh, I'm excited by the possibility, and more along the lines of the software. I'm actually, if the hardware barely works, but the software is pure OS, and I've run pure OS, and it's if it runs just like any typical Debian, then I'm actually going to say, that's good, simple, Tom. Okay, so good to meet you, Tom. So that's my thing is if we get to that stage, it'll be kind of a different world, I think, and I'm that's my preference. I don't like these lockdown things. When I was using Unix in the 90s, I there's a simplicity to Unix, and then what complicated it was running Windows. If you ever done Windows programming, sucks. Windows programming sucks. I mean, when you first started with GUI programming back in the old days, to this day on Windows, it's very, very difficult. And then when I had to do GUI programming on on iOS, it's like learning something completely new. And again, it's a matter of their terminology. It's not learning how to program. It's learning terminology, and it's learning a thought process again. And it's very frustrating to have to relearn somebody else's thought process, whoever made it. And I just get tired of that. I just want to have something standardized, just runs the same way all the time. And I didn't have a problem, by the way. I built a GUI using GTK on Linux. I did a Linux app with GUI, and that was easy. I used Python, and that took me you know in a week's time. I had a full running app. Well, you can't do that on Windows. If you have I have many programs I made in Windows, and I wrote it in C, and it is so difficult to make apps in C in Windows, and it's very difficult to do the same thing in iOS, because again, they control what you can do. You're not actually free to roam around, do whatever you want. You're always within some sort of limited space that the OS gives you. So I hate that, and I hate the restrictions on Android as well. And I want to be able to go around and do anything I want. And some people don't like that for security reasons. They, well, we want to lock it down. We don't want anybody to do anything. It's like, yeah, but that's why we cannot control our privacy, because we don't have access to things. They hide stuff. And if you're gonna ask me, my choice, there's other ways to lock it down without hiding things from me. Donna here. Donna, hello, Donna. In Vegas, Potato the Great. Wow, wow type is real. What does that mean? What did I miss here? Would be lovely if you can just connect your phone to an HDMI and voila, full Linux desktop is a dream. Yeah, so you can do it partially on this, and I don't like the way they do it on here, and it's the way that Canonical Ubuntu made it originally, and they invented this. So I'll tell you how you do it on this, and I had to figure it out. I didn't know how it worked. I mean, I thought all you do is install I thought all you do is Debian. So I thought, okay, you go to terminal and say apt-get install Firefox, and it works. No, it doesn't work. Why? Read only. So on these phones, they have a container area, and it's called Libertine, and you have to install it using the Libertine container. And Libertine container, if you know anything Linux, it's actually a chroot. So it's a jail. So a Libertine is a chroot jail. So you actually install it in the jail. And okay, so you say, fine, okay, I understand chroot, and you can do install on a chroot jail. And except it's more than that, because there's compatibility problem, because the display aspect of it is different on Ubuntu than it is for GNOME and for normal computers. It uses this is something that Canonical made, and they dropped it. They made their own graphics compositor, and they called it Mir. And then they dropped it, and then it got installed on this, and this is using Mir, and nobody uses Mir anymore, including Ubuntu. Ubuntu does not use Mir anymore. They switched to GNOME, so now we have this. You don't need to ADB anything on here, because this is not Android. You can SSH to it. You can just SSH the device, which again, you will find out that you have no rights to do SSH. Then you got to go back to command line, remount the drive, read write, give yourself transfer files for certificates for there's so many steps to do SSH. It's just too much trouble. I said, can you even run FTP on this? Because I want to run like SFTP on this, so it's easy. Too many steps. So on Pure OS, I know you can do it easily. apt get, install this, and you're done. On this, no. No, this is not Android. So it's pure, think of it as Linux, but it's lockdown Linux. Lockdown. So that's what I hope not to get with the Librem. I keep looking at the wrong camera. That's not the camera. This is the camera. This is my camera for live for videos. This is the camera for live. Okay. I'm saying that it's the 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 interface for accessing the phone is so locked down, and I just want to see an actual Librem 5 running. I don't even care if it doesn't completely run. If it's, I just get it raw with Pure OS and a unrestricted file system where I can do anything I want and load desktop apps. So then I can play with it. I don't actually need to use it too much with anything else. If just I get access to that, I can do development work. And versus the limitations on this. On ADB root on Linux, I push a custom host file. Can you get the custom host file on that? Well, well, no. Host file for well, why do you need a custom host file? Yeah, I guess you could. What you'd have to do is turn it to read. So you have to go to terminal on it, remount the drive as read write, then SSH into the phone, and then go to your etc host file and then overwrite it, and then sudo whatever, and then change it back to the root, and then there you go. Yeah, it's it's kind of like it's just like using a restricted Linux device. If you wanted to access a Linux machine like a computer, it's just a lockdown version of that, and that's why it's kind of a pain. Are basic dummy phones safe? Safe in what way? From Google and Apple, yes. Safe from the carrier, no. My file blocks ad trackers, Facebook, crypto mines, and such globally on the phone. Yeah, so you can do that. You can do that. Wow, you actually have a big host file instead of just. See, I don't do that. I run it on this. My Wi-Fi does it. This is automatically running Pi-hole, so it's automatically blocking all that. So I don't do it on a host file. That's kind of hard to maintain. So I don't run it on the phone level. I run it on the VPN router. This is my VPN router. So this handles all that. So I don't put it on the phone. That's kind of a complex way of doing it. I'm sure that will work, but you'd have to keep upgrading that. Good thing you're blocking Facebook. Smart. Because if you block Facebook, the ad trackers all have Facebook.com. So you block them. What are your thoughts about Copperhead, Graphene OS, and Sailfish OS? Mine blocks when I'm not on your home network. Awesome. So there are many. So let's talk about some of, just in general, some of the Android OEM custom ROMs. And so if you don't know what they are, so basically the basic Android is based on the Android open source project, or AOSP. So everyone starts, including Google, they start with AOSP. So they want to make a change to the base one. They base the change on AOSP. So any new version of Android, they're going to make the change first on the open source portion of it called AOSP. If there's some new hardware, they'll change it on AOSP. and then Google puts their stuff on top of that. Now the effect of this is that uh, if you're making a Graphene OS, Lineage OS, and all these, that you're actually building a building it from the same base, and they're all compatible drivers and everything. And what are you doing here again? What the fuck does that mean? Anyway, anyway, the point I'm making here is that they're fairly similar, with the exception of Google services. So Google basically said, we're not going to open source anything that's a Google service, Google Play Store, the specific Google apps, even Google Chrome, everything with all the Google tracking and Google behavior and all that, Google ads, everything, including Google notifications, all of that are on the Google side. So they're not part of AOSP. Now, having said that, then what's the difference when somebody says, well, I'm going to make an AOSP version that's privacy based? One of the companies that say that is Graphene OS. So if you actually look at the specs of Graphene OS, you will find that, for one, they're only compatible with one phone, I think. And if you actually say, what have you actually done related to privacy? And there's actually nothing. They did something related to cybersecurity, but they actually haven't done anything related to privacy. And yes, it's supposed to be the privacy OS. The fact is, you're using Android, so that means you're using Wi-Fi triangulation. Since Wi-Fi triangulation is on the hardware, which I proved by testing this Linux. This has Wi-Fi triangulation too, because this is an Android hardware. So as it turns out, I'm not sure what Graphene OS is going to offer me, except for the fact that it's not compatible with a lot of devices. So Graphene OS is a promise. Now, I didn't actually check the specific specs of Copperhead OS, but Graphene OS had a more extreme kind of platform, and they said we're going to be really privacy based. I did not see anything about privacy that's of any significance on Graphene OS, and yet you don't have any compatible devices. You might as well just use Lineage OS and just not put Google apps on it. So at this moment, it doesn't matter. I'm not sold on whatever Graphene OS and these guys are supposed to be doing for me. I'd rather use Linux. This is still superior to me compared to that. So if they're working on that and Linux is working on this stuff, I'm looking forward to this. I forget the JM. It's only one, and it's a fairly new phone, but it's only one. So it's almost like just development, you know. Okay, so anyway, so somebody wanted to ask, what about 5G? Okay, let's talk about 5G as it relates to privacy. So the problem with 5G, and I actually, don't want a phone with 5G on it. And not for the health reasons and all that, which I have in a video. There are health issues with all wireless, including 4G. So if you think 5G is the issue, really no. 4G is an issue too. So if you're going to complain about the health problems with cell RF, then you're going to have to include 4G, since all the studies were based on 3G and 4G. So if there's health problems with 3G, 4G, then you really have it now, today. So I'm going to set that aside. We're not going to talk about that because, that's not the point. But let me just tell you the privacy issues with 5G. So currently on 4G and below, you are located based on the cell tower. And that's really all they can do. They can say, oh yes, Rob is in cell tower A. oh, he just switched to cell tower B, so it must be at the junction between B and A. Now that's the closest they can get to you, is because if you're switching over to one cell tower to another, then you're in a more limited zone, and they can tell where you are, at least in general heading. Like you're heading north, something like that. So they can know that, and know roughly where you are if you're doing that. But that's not the way it works in 5G. 5G, the way 5G works, in order to get the high frequency, let me just summarize this for you. The problem with 5G is that 5G uses microwave signals at a much higher frequency. So if they're going to send a signal at 25 gigahertz, 25 gigahertz, like your Wi-Fi is 2.4 to 5 gigahertz, and let's say that they do 5G at 25 gigahertz. As you go up in gigahertz, as you go up in frequency, the signal is not able to cross walls and not able to cross. So it kind of weakens the signal. It has a shorter range and doesn't cross walls. So, but it can also handle a lot more traffic. So if you're using 5G and you're within the range of 5G, you can increase the throughput. You could be talking about gigahertz, gigabit speeds on wireless data. So that's pretty exciting. Gigahertz speed on wireless data, but at what cost? At what cost? So the problem with the 5G concept is that in order to make up for the lack of range, they actually have to come up with a technique. Now there's two ways to make up for the range problem. One is to increase the transmission signal strength, meaning increase. This is what people fear. They think that they're going to have to increase the power on 5G in order for it to reach you. But that is not what they're doing. At least not right now. They are not. There's no BlackBerry with Linux. BlackBerry is only BlackBerry. It doesn't come with Linux. BlackBerry comes with BlackBerry. So they actually do it differently with 5G. With 5G, they don't want to increase the signal strength for now. So what they're going to do is do it with software. So in order to make 5G reach further, they're narrowing the signal. So instead of right now a 4G signal is broadband like that. Okay, so in order for it to not waste the energy, they're going to focus the 5G into a narrow beam like that. So before the beam was that big, and now the beam is going to be very narrow. Now, what is the consequence of a narrow beam? The consequence of a narrow beam is you have to be focused right on the beam for the signal to take. So how does that work? Well, the way they did it is by software. They can direct the beam. You can do this with software. There are many ways of doing this, including having multiple antennas and then switching some antennas on and off, and you can actually cause directionality. And you can do some phasing. There's some things they can do electrically, like different phases of signal. And by doing so, they can actually point the beam at you. So if let's say you're over there in that orange spot there, right? Okay. So they can actually point the beam at your phone. Okay. And that increases the range since the beam is very narrow. It doesn't have to have as much wasted energy because it's being very focused. And that gives them the reach. Now, let me tell you the problem with that. The problem with that is now every phone and every cell tower will now have a precise bead on anyone's location if you're using the phone. One of those beams are going to be pointed at every phone. Okay, and it's precise enough that they can probably tell you where you are in within a few feet. So instant identification. So can you imagine? You pick up the phone and they know exactly where you are. And I just think about them selling that data. Say, oh yeah, we know, we can sell it to Big Brother or sell it to advertisers. We'll know exactly where you are. And that is a very scary thing about 5G. So 5G is going to be available everywhere. The problem is, do you really want it? So I'm going to try to, hold off on ever using 5G if I can, because all they want to do is charge you more money anyway. One of the advantages of 5G is that you get faster videos and faster everything and more bandwidth. But again, all of this is at a cost of privacy, and that's the part that I don't like. The cost of privacy. It's a big cost. Okay, what did I miss here in the comments? What did I miss in the comment? Using GNU Linux on a phone is great, but absent open source hardware, one is still compromising aspects of security and privacy. Yes, Mitchell, I understand that, and it's in steps. As you get into, unfortunately, it may remain like that for a long time because of who owns the patents. So maybe the solution is don't use your cell. Maybe you have to use Wi-Fi. That's the way the world works right now. Mobile is based on a lot of patents which are owned mostly by two companies, MediaTek and Qualcomm. So they own most of the patents for phones. So they're not going to open source it for you just because you say, Mitchell Valentino says you have to open source because, it's from whatever, safety. And Qualcomm is going to say, suck you. We don't care about you, Mitchell Valentino. It's our zucking patent, not your patent. It's our money, so you're zucked. So that's the reality. You're not. We don't get much of a choice here. Okay, so the choices are maybe we stop using cell. Okay, so you may not ever get a open source hardware solution when it comes to cell. The cell carrier, but maybe we can do it with Wi-Fi through a VPN or something like Tor. So maybe we can do it like that someday, but at the moment it's not gonna happen. This is the future for us. Unfortunately, we are run by corporations, people. Corporations, big ones, control most of the money is being made by Apple, Google, Qualcomm, and MediaTek, and MediaTek is Chinese, and they're the ones making the money, and the rest of us, think about the fact that Apple became the largest corporation in the world, beating even Exxon, and I don't know if they're number one right now, but they were, right, and to think that happened. All because of the mobile phone. To think that this happened because of the mobile phone, it's shocking. 150 billion needed to build out new fiber to support 5G, AT&T, debt load very high. Wi-Fi is indeed a future for phones. Yeah, so that is the sad truth. And so if I'm going to talk about the future and where it's going, sadly, we need alternate means of communication. If you watch some of my old videos, I have a mesh network. Somebody actually asked me this because they didn't see my old videos, but I made a mesh network, and I have a kind of a mesh array that talks to my boat, which is approximately 4 miles away. So and then I'm talking to another station that connects to many other places on the mesh 27 miles away. So I'm actually connected not on the internet, but on an alternate communication method using these dish antennas that I have. And they're commercial products, and they're not using the internet. So, Can you imagine if people just said, heck with this, we'll start our own private network, and if every person just buys one of these, and we can create a sub network, you know, to deprive the carriers of the only way to communicate is going through the internet. It's big business now, and it's very limiting. It's only going to a few places, and it needs to be decentralized again, like back in the old days. Regular cell phone Wi-Fi is extremely easy to track, even by me, and with the right publicly available tools. A VPN, especially Tor, helps tremendously. Yes, not relying upon cell phones seems to be the best option. Yes, so that's what I rely on. Can your array be jammed? Yeah, of course it can be jammed. Yeah, but it would take a lot of, if it's democratic enough and everyone is part of it. Right now, very few of us have this, but this mesh, and to be part of the mesh, you have to have to be part of the mesh, you have to have a ham license. So I have a ham license, so I can do this. But it would be nice in the future if we actually can do that, where somebody says, yeah, I want to be independent and I want to create our own network and not connect it to anyone else. And then maybe we trunk it to the internet in an anonymous way, and then that's how we communicate, and we don't rely on the internet. And maybe it's peer to peer, and we share it through our homes. And if everyone in the block has one, presumably you can take over. And at some point, if people were actually concerned about privacy, they might do that. But unfortunately, people are just so in love with their phones, they can't think there's another option. I feel like the most secure way to use phone internet is to keep it in a Faraday bag and connect via Ethernet. You can't put Ethernet on a phone because it's wireless. It's got to be Wi-Fi. Indeed, meshes indeed via ham radio or other unlicensed frequencies. As CTO, we created a decentralized secure SIP calling network that does require current architecture. Yeah, there are many videos. I can make a video like that as well, and create. I did not attach a phone at each end of my mesh network. I could, if the video were popular, I could have pursued it some more just to show you that I can do it. And if you're like in a prepper community, this is perfect. So this is a perfect thing for a community. If there's a lot of people in a local area, if you're in a little town and you said, I want to get everyone to think in the same way and do this, you could. But unfortunately, everyone has different thoughts, and we're all in love with our phones. And I am in the minority, and if I talk about something like this, I would be considered tinfoil hat. I actually did. I went to a community of ham radio operators, and it's a group of people that I know. There's so many ham people in it, and I'm a member of this group. And when I mentioned this option, they kind of like, we don't really care about that. We just want to use our radios. And I made a video about that too. I'd like to see your video about cubes. I don't use cubes because I could not find a compatible device. For years, I've used Hunix. And then I realized that I can't teach people how to use Hunix. So I decided that the solution is to have a hardware version of Hunix. This is the hardware version of Hunix. If you have this, it's like running Hunix or cubes. This is the equivalent in hardware. Okay, except this, you have an option of using VPN or Tor. If you want to go Tor, that'll be like Hunix. If you want to use VPN, then it's not exactly like Hunix. Okay, because Hunix is Tor only, which is slow. So anyway, so I already have it. This is the better solution than using. It's more practical solution. It's not using Hunix is not practical. So I feel like people should support people who care about privacy and support companies that promote it, because simply money can drive things the right way. Yeah, but not happening. the push to 5G is to tighten the surveillance. Yes, that's going to happen. I like hardware solutions. Yes, so my goal here is how do I get the average person, to feel the same kind of safety they have with Honix and Cubes and Tails, because those are very secure options. How do you do that? So the first version I did of this was a Tor Wi-Fi router. So that's the first product I made, a Tor Wi-Fi router. Santiago Marcano. Marcano. How are you doing, Santiago? So that's the first version I did of this. But this one is different now. This one is VPN and Tor. And also, this is a change I only did yesterday. I haven't even finished the documentation yet. But then, if you're buying this now, my Wi-Fi router, it now has a wired option. You can actually just trunk traffic on here, wired, no Wi-Fi. So you have a choice: use Wi-Fi or wired. If you use wired, then you can send it to a switch, and then from the switch you can do Wi-Fi or however you want to bring it in here. It's up to you. So so this will support wired starting with the current model. It's version 3. I'm gonna have to check the Brax out. Never heard of it. Yes, I put my money. It's true, Rebuzz. That's the amnesiac part of it is what makes it unusable, because you can't store files, you can't do anything. It says tomorrow it'll be gone. What affordable phone do you recommend for maximum privacy for us foil hat people? At the moment, the only practical intermediate solution is Ubuntu Touch. So this is the only solution for next few months. And then after that, we'll see by summer if the Librem 5 takes off in the Pine phone. At the moment, this is the only option. So for next 6 months, we're kind of stuck. Okay? Do you run Tor through VPN or VPN through Tor, or just Tor by itself without a VPN? I run Tor by itself without a VPN. You switch it to both. You run Tor only or VPN only. You do not do VPN and Tor. It's kind of, in a way, it depends on which is first. If you run VPN through Tor, it's actually unsafe. If you run VPN before Tor, that's good. That's actually not bad. But if you've done VPN first and then Tor, so that doesn't provide any safety. Anyway, what was I saying about this? I forgot. I was saying something about using a VPN router, but I forgot. Anyway, so yeah, so this is available from my store. The store is rob@brax.me. Oh, I was going to talk about Brax.me. So some of you know me from YouTube, and you don't actually know that I've been at this privacy business for a while, and I'm going to tell you, it's been very hard. It's been very hard to get traction with privacy because I have no money to promote. And so I actually made an app. It's been running for years. I don't make money from the app. It's been around for a while. I actually run my store from the app, so that's one of the services that I sell. If you want to run a store from my Brax.me app, that's how I do my Brax.me store. So you can set up a store. Brax is not amnesiac. Amnesiac means it doesn't remember anything. Brax is encrypted. Okay, I want to make sure you're clear on that. Tails is amnesiac, meaning it doesn't have any persistence. So if you create a document on Tails, tomorrow there will be no document on Tails. So can you imagine writing a book? You can't use Tails to write a book. Why? Tomorrow there's no book. forgets everything. It forgets everything on Tails. I mean, it forgets your Wi-Fi driver. It forgets your Wi-Fi setting. Forgets everything. Every time you start it, it's like you started the same day. So there's a lot of setup every day just to use Tails. It's impossible to use for normal purposes. It's really made for spies. If you're going to use you make a USB disk and you want to use it once and that's it, that's what you use Tails for. That is not something you use for everyday use. And this is why you want this instead, because this doesn't need to do that. No foreskin, no foreskin. I tell you, it doesn't even have a mount for your storage. You have to remount it. Okay? You have to do a remount because it forgets all devices. So it's like every day it's like starting from scratch. It's not very usable. Okay? I thought the router was somehow amnesiac, but yes, that makes sense. Yeah, you don't want an amnesiac router. The router doesn't log or do anything. It's open. The source code and everything is open on the router. I don't hide my source code. It's a Linux is Raspbian, which is a Debian fork. So if you know how to use Raspbian, you log in and you have the password. You can look at the file system, look at everything, and see how I did it. Now you can see it's a lot of work to set this up, and there's a lot of code in it, and the code isn't free to distribute. So I'm not giving it away. However, it's open. If you want to look at it, you can look at it, but just you can't sell it. So I'm not offering it to be sold because I spent so much time on it. Okay? It's easy to install UB ports on Nexus 5. No, I wouldn't say it's easy. I gave you the instructions. No, it's not easy. It will take you a while. Lots of trial and error. There's a video. You want to use the video, you can do it. Or you just have me do it for you. And like I said, I charge $99 to do it. So if you want me to do it, I add $99 to the price of the phone. So the phone is approximately $68, just to give you an idea. Okay, I take the phone, spend time setting it up, and then I pre-install some apps on it, and then I can do it. Now, if you do it, it will take you a while. So if you don't want to spend that time and research and all that, a lot of you will not want to do that. Then I'll just do it for you. If you're techie, then do it yourself. You don't need me. $99 for my time to set it up. So whatever the price of the phone is, depends on what phone and what model. So this is a 32 gigabyte Nexus 5, which I've been buying the current set for about $68. Then I add 99 to that. Okay, so depends on the phone. So whatever phone I happen to have, I add 99 to it to pay for the time to do it. It's small. It's a pittance. Somebody actually made a comment on my live video yesterday, and said, "Oh, I see. You're just trying to make money from us." Well, Zach, nobody forces you to buy. If you don't want to buy, don't buy. Okay, but if I'm going to spend my time programming it or doing whatever I need to do with it, I'm only doing what normal people do, make a living. So if you want me to spend my time on it, my videos are free. But if you want me to spend time on it, I do it. I don't need to be insulted by somebody saying, "Oh, I see you're just trying to make money from us." No, don't force anyone to do it. Do it yourself. What is a total viewer count, Jam? I don't know what that means. Is it not possible to have Bluetooth on it? It has Bluetooth. The phone Bluetooth is buggy on the Ubuntu Touch. The music Bluetooth runs. The phone, it's a very specific problem on the Nexus 5. The phone Bluetooth is buggy. So, if you want a extremely reliable phone with Bluetooth on it for your car, my BlackBerry is very reliable, and you can put music on it, and Bluetooth runs wonderfully on it, and I'm selling that for $50. Uh, cryptocurrencies are awesome. That's all I'm gonna need to say. Since that's not our topic tonight. Cryptocurrencies are awesome. I mean, live right now. What does that mean? Uh, JM. What's your total view? I don't know. You mean live right now? I can see what you can see. It's on. There's at this moment there are 56 simultaneous viewers on YouTube. I don't know what the total is. Doesn't tell you that till tomorrow. It's and okay. So, are you one of those that's gonna unfollow me now because we're gonna talk about crypto? Sold at the Brax store. Yeah. So I have a store, Brax.me. I was gonna talk about Brax.me. So I have an app. It's called Brax.me, and uh, yes, it is on Android. Yes, it is on iOS. After talking about iOS and Android, but it runs as a web app, so you can run it on Ubuntu Touch. I do have Brax on here because it's running as a web app. I actually have it there. So there's Brax loading now. Uh, so I do run Brax.me on here. Hard to show you that. Okay. So Brax.me is a privacy app, and what is different about it? Let me just obviously encryption is a big part of it, but one of the biggest issues I have with some of these other solutions like Signal, Telegram, and even WhatsApp is that they use your zucking phone number. I hate that. That's why I'm not on any of those platforms. Because the first thing they ask when you join is to give a phone number. So you're immediately identified, and I don't really want to do that. So Brax.me doesn't require any kind of identification. You can use Brax.me with an invented name and no ID of any sort. There's no IP address tracking. You do not have to ever worry about a VPN using Brax.me. If you don't have a VPN, you want to communicate, Brax.me has nothing. It doesn't log IP addresses. It doesn't log anything. It doesn't require you to identify yourself. If you want to lock in your password so you can recover your account if it's important, I use a TOTP time-based authorization like Authy or even Google Authenticator. And you can use that instead, meaning a time-based password instead of using any phone number identifier or email. You don't need any of that. It's optional. You can use it, but it's optional. You don't need to use it. And because we respect pseudo anonymity on Brax, it's a free speech kind of space, and it's pseudo anonymous. And I don't make money from it. It's not a big platform. Uh, Most of the people on it are privacy conscious. I initially built that platform with mostly people from Periscope, and I had from Periscope I initially got I think around 8,000 people from Periscope to be on it, and we actually had commercial use of it where we put in a couple 100,000 people on it, but those are gone now because the commercial side is closed down. So anyway, I'm not making money from it. It's really not uh, it's really not my intent anymore. So, but it's there. It's free. It's running, and I want to. It's the only way to talk to me actually, because I don't talk anywhere else. If you want to talk to me and talk to the community people who are interested in privacy, support that app. I'm not going to make money from it, so it doesn't matter anymore. Um, but you're all welcome in it. You can use it for free. You can store photos, files. It's all encrypted. You can do end-to-end encryption on the chat, and so you have the same. The keys are actually kept on your phone, so you can do very advanced security without having to worry about revealing a phone number. So it's if you want to do it like that. So anyway, that is my platform. It's called Brax.me. It's been around for around 4 years, and so I just don't have the. I had high hopes that someday I would be as popular as Facebook. It's actually pretty powerful. You can do live broadcasts on there and do blogging and so on. I use it primarily for my store. So my store, if you want to buy something, you actually buying it from my Braxme store, and that's actually a service that you can use. So if you want to have a website and a store, I actually have that on Brax.me. Website, store, and a mobile app. So that's actually available there. I'm not marketing it anymore because I since I can't make money from it. But if you want it, it's available, and some people actually are using the store and finding, well, this is the simplest store you can use. It's very simple to use. So if you don't have to set up any servers, nothing, and you can set up a store and sell whatever you want. Do you have a repository? It's not open source. No, 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 it is not. It's not open. No. If you don't want to go there because it's not open source, too bad. So because I'm not going to open source it. So I need to make a living too. Uh, so you don't have to, if you don't want it because it's not open source, and go to WhatsApp. That's not open source. And just love that. Go to Telegram. That's not open source. Oh, Telegram is open source. Wrong. Telegram open source a portion. Signal's open source. No, just small. They only open source little parts of it. So I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to open source it because they're lying to you anyway. Okay, they open source tiny little portions of it. So, and then everything else is proprietary. So I'm not going to waste your time and tell you that it's any different. It's kind of like Telegram. It has the same kind of structure as Telegram, without all the lies about open sourcing. I shouldn't reveal this information. I think you should compare yourself to the best on Dread. Well, I don't know what that is. What is best on Dread? Not know what that is. Matrix is open source. I think so, but I don't really know. Matrix is kind of hard to understand. So I'm using the Muse, yes. But don't type the three-letter agency in here. Do you have the repository? Yeah. Okay. Yes, Braxme is not open source because WhatsApp, Telegram, etc. These are not open source either. Wicker, none of these are open source. So you're asking me to be different? No, I need just to make money like anyone else. So since I'm not making money from it, then it doesn't matter right now. So anyway, so Braxme is free, with some just special services that are not free, such as the store. So if you want to build a store or a private community, you can set up a private community in it. That's not free either. Otherwise, it's free. And hang out and do whatever you want. Store files. You can store files and photos. You have 4 gigabytes free to store files. You have unlimited storage of photos. The EXIF data is stripped out. There's no IP addresses. It's fantastic. That's where I keep my stuff. That's where I keep my own stuff. So I don't put any data on my phone. I just put it on Braxme. I encrypted it myself, so I know I can rely on the fact that no one's going to steal that data. So I feel safer putting my stuff encrypted on Braxme than I would put it on any device, including a computer. I don't put data on a computer either. I put it all in Braxme, in my special cloud. Okay? So anyway, what else? Any other questions? Trying to understand some of these comments. It's great. I already downloaded it. Yeah, so you can run Braxme on a desktop. Just go to the Braxme website. You can run it as a web app. You can run it as an app. on iOS and Android. It looks the same on all platforms. Gonna sign up now. I'll try to tell my friend. Sounds awesome. Yeah, not no big push. I don't need to care if I have a, a, another group of 100,000 on it. It doesn't matter to me. It's just use it because it's good for you. I don't need anything else from it. You should share more of growing up the totalitarian regime to help people understand privacy. Uh, yes, uh, occasionally, perhaps not tonight. Okay, potato threat. What did you type now that's causing the algorithm to? Please check out. Okay, I proved that potato that was it's good material for video because lots of people use Android anyway. Mm, okay, yeah, I can't believe I got a very it was kind of a mean comment from somebody who watched. As you know, I don't. Yesterday's broadcast was specifically talking about teaching you about my products, primarily the Brax Wi-Fi router. So this one guy made a comment and said, "Oh yeah, so you're just here to make money and you're just Actually, the reason I did that video yesterday was somebody was asking me to teach them how this works because they didn't understand how this works and they wanted a privacy tool and I had to explain. So I spent it's actually Mr. H. Where's Mr. H right now? Mr. H wanted to know how this was, and so I focused the thing on the product that he wanted to learn about, and I wanted to do that. And so, yes, obviously I make a living from making these. I mean, I physically make these. I physically program this. It's part of what I do. So I can't imagine people being mean and saying, "Well, I shouldn't be making products that I can sell." I mean, I'm not making money from doing the videos. Okay, the videos don't make money. I'm just doing what I normally do. I make products. I've been doing that all my life. I make products. So YouTube sells you products, and I happen to be one of the people who make products. I can't imagine somebody being me and saying that I am not entitled to sell my own products to anyone I want to sell it to because I made them. Okay, so if you think that I don't, that I'm supposed to just be here and not be able to talk about my own products, is I don't make any money doing this. Uh, you know, how do we make a living? How do we support ourselves? Well, we work. I work making products. I don't charge for the video. The videos are free. The information is free. All that's free. I'm here to educate you. If you're going to be mean, then go away. Right? None of you are mean. It's just those mean people. So, but who cares? That's just YouTube. It's every day. Okay? So, just I don't have to apologize for making products. I make products. I make software. I've been making software for my entire life. My software is being used by Fortune 500 companies and giant hospitals and, you know, hundreds of thousands of healthcare professionals and so on. And I've sold every kind of software imaginable. So yes, I sell my software. My software that I made for the medical field. That's back in the day when I was in that field. Those sell for a lot of money per sale. They're big buck products, not like these little things that hardly make any money on. So, but I don't do that anymore. So I do this because I'm here to try to pass a message. I'm not here, because I want to fleece you. I want to just make the products that help you. And the reason I've concentrated on making these products is because there's no option. He keeps coughing and burping on the mic. You mean like that? I didn't even notice. I have allergies. To those who criticize, I will use my wife's favorite phrase. Bite me. Not Brax me, bite me. Uh, make products and play jazz. Yeah, I can't even make money playing jazz. So don't listen to haters. We like your work and 100% support you. That's why we're here. Thank you, Potato the Great. Thank you. Yeah, I know. The majority of you don't, are very supportive. So besides, you really benefit from it. Look. I can't tell you how much time I've spent on these devices. I'm now on version 3, and these get more sophisticated by the day. And I actually uh, made this 3 times faster than the version right before it. This is 3 times faster than the one from last week. Okay, can you imagine that? I want to make sure people are happy, so I spent my time spent the whole week actually uh, tweaking this to see how can I make this go faster. So I did it. So that's a lot of work of programming work, and successfully, and on an inexpensive device made it go faster. Otherwise, you have to pay a lot of money for the more expensive devices, and now I made sure that I can do it for cheap, and that's what I've done. I should have waited on buying my second unit. Um, uh, well, I have. Uh, I can. I can uh, ship out a. Unfortunately, entire Meyer. I mean, it's constant technology. I'm building something, and I don't know what I'm going to be able to build. So, but I have another version of the 3B Plus, the prior version, that makes that slightly faster as well. So it's not going to be as fast as this, but it's going to be faster. So I can increase the speed of the prior one, and even that will be fine. You will notice a considerable increase, and that will be. But don't rush me right now. Uh, I I gotta prepare that, and I gotta do that later. I gotta make these ones first. I don't even have the manual yet, so it may be a few weeks before I get to that. Get the 3B plus version available for updating and so on the old one. So because I can't screw that up. If I screw it up, then tech support will increase, and I have to spend all my time trying to fix it. So anyway, that's yes. Unfortunately, I can only keep doing better, and sometimes I'm more successful at unexpected time. This was unexpected, I have to admit. Um, I've been experimenting with it. So let me just tell you my history with this. So I've been using a Pi 4 entire Meyer. I've been using a Pi 4 and testing it, and it's the same speed as the 3B plus. So I was so frustrated. I said, why is it the same speed? I mean, it should be faster. It's not. So I find a way to tweak it, and some of this is not documented, so it's a little bit of guesswork. So, and it's a lot of research, and then a lot of testing, and then I had to rewrite it completely. So I rewrote the program again to do this, and again, it's just really complicated to do. Um, some people have an open source product called DDWRT that does what I do in here, and I wrote it myself. I didn't go to use DDWRT or some other tool. I wrote it myself. So yes. So I keep improving this. The alarm I'm improving this coming week. I'm on jury duty. Zuck. Okay, I'm on jury duty next week. So maybe while I'm sitting around waiting to be called in, I can do some programming, and I'm gonna add email notifications to this. So I'm gonna add email notification to the radar. So I'll do that next week when I'm on jury duty. So it's gonna be frustrating because what a time waster. So I can't do I'm not going to be able to do video if I'm going to be doing jury duty. Writing code definitely doesn't sound easy. No, this is difficult stuff. This is not simple coding. The kind of stuff I do is a bit on the high end. So writing, routing software is, you know, kind of complex. So it's complicated. It's like you have to have a deep understanding of networking to be able to do that. And they actually have code out on the internet where you can just copy the commands and repeat it, and you can make a Tor router. But I'm going to tell you, this one has an interface. It has a web interface on it. It's kind of like running DDWRT. It's pretty sophisticated. Can change mode, and you can configure it all without having to know anything about programming. And to do that requires a lot of work. And this can actually sense. If you attach a dongle, it will know. If you attach an antenna, it will know. It will. If you attach Ethernet, it will know. It detects it automatically and responds automatically. And that's part of the coding problem. Can you do the video on jury? You can do a live video on jury duty. I don't. You're not allowed to do videos and photos and anything in the courthouse. Not allowed, Silverlight. I'd have to do it in the parking lot. Uh, don't you ever wear the jailbird orange outfit for jury duty next week? By the way, I don't know why they're calling me for jury duty. And it's not even a report by phone. It was actually report in. It's not fair because 5 years ago I was already in a case. I was a juror in a case that lasted for almost a month. And, I consumed a month of my time on jury duty, and it was a murder case. Guilty. So, can I connect it to AT&T Wi-Fi router? Yes. Yeah, that's the whole point. El Capitan, that is the point. You take this and you connect this to the existing Wi-Fi router. That Wi-Fi router becomes the gateway, and this becomes a supplementary Wi-Fi. So it's like second Wi-Fi. So this becomes a child Wi-Fi to your AT&T router or whatever your main router is. For example, if you're using Apple Airport, is that your main router? You plug it into the back, and then you have a supplementary router. Hong Kong's exploding with protests. I'm Dave. Yeah, funny thing, they used the 5th of November to do anonymous protests in Hong Kong. And I always get amused by, people doing anonymous protests in Hong Kong. Guess what the anonymous protesters are doing? They're wearing their masks, and then they're on their zucking cell phones. It's like, fuck. There's no anonymity if you use a zucking cell phone in a protest. Don't be zucking dumb. It's dumb. Do you know what cell carriers the Librem 5 will work on? As far as I know, it should work with all of them in the U.S. And there's two versions, U.S. and a non-U.S. version. So you choose if you're going to use U.S. or non-U.S. I'm so glad you showed that. But isn't that funny? See, is that funny that you go to a protest and you bring a phone? I mean, if I go to a protest, Linux phone, people. Protest phone. This is the phone for a protest. Linux phone. Okay? You can even take pictures with it. Linux phone, people. That's what you bring to a protest. You do not bring iOS and Android. Zuck, no. No zucking iOS and Android. Yeah, it's so stupid. I saw that. There was a video of it, and I'm like, wearing masks. they're wearing masks and then they're doing this like a typical millennial, wearing a mask but tapping on their phones. It's like you sucking idiots. Yeah, you're Zuck in the 6 feet. You're Zuck within 6 feet. ZF Ling. Hello, ZF Ling. How are you doing, ZF Ling? Okay, so we're just to again update you on activities here. So I don't know what I'm gonna do about a video. If I guess I can slowly work on a video at night. If I'm in a jury duty, I don't know when I'm gonna be able to release a video. So next week is gonna be tough. So I may have to do my civic duty and no video. So anyway, you can all reach me in Brax.me, and I'll you can talk to me there if you want to ask questions. And I have lots of old videos that nobody watches. So go back to my old videos. You'd be surprised. My old videos are just as good or better than my new videos. And the only reason that my new videos are performing better than the old videos is because YouTube is sharing my new videos. They're not sharing my old videos. So it just means I was not popular when those came out. They're full of information. So there's a lot of videos. I have a couple hundred videos in there, all put in 2019, in January. 200 videos this year alone. That's a lot of videos. So you have a lot to watch. So it's not going to be helpful for me to get to my next phase here, to get to 6,000 subscribers. But I can't help it if I have to do my civic duty. And then, of course, Thanksgiving is coming too. So that's a problem. Okay, anyway, no piano here. I am Dave. I'm not near a piano. On Tuesday, I have a gig. I have a jam session, so you can watch that on Periscope. So I'll do that on Periscope. So Periscope, I do the music. I can't do it on YouTube. YouTube will demonetize my channel. So even if I'm playing the music, if I'm playing any jazz tunes that have a composer, then they'll say copyright violation of composer. So yes, have a great Frostflake. That they thought that was some sort of bad word. Your typo. That's funny. They actually blocked that. They thought you probably used an N word. That is funny. That is funny. Okay, so again, thank you, and amazing how the numbers of live viewers are increasing on YouTube. In fact, YouTube has more live viewers now than Periscope, and it's growing. So very soon we'll be having my same numbers on Periscope from before, but on YouTube. So Periscope is very minimal nowadays, so I'm not expecting too much. Let me just see. Yeah. So there are people who never get up to on ClearNet, but it would be nice to see you discuss. There are people who never go up on the ClearNet. Discuss what? Not sure what you want me to discuss. Quantum level engineers. Okay. I did many videos on Periscope on quantum computing. So thank you, Santiago. Thank you. So how do you see block comments by TV? No, when the comments are blocked by YouTube, I see it on my phone. Then I have to approve it. So if you type in a 3-letter agency name, it'll stop you. Then I don't approve that. So don't type 3-letter agency names in here. So that's an example. Okay, thank you guys for watching as always. That was always awesome, and want to make this more personal, and you I tend to connect with my viewers in a more personal level, and you can talk to me on brax.me, and you're all welcome to hang out. And now there's some strange people there too, so please don't be ticked off by people who are there for privacy reasons, because I don't block anyone, and I don't anyone can go in there and say anything, and some people will say things that maybe you dislike. So don't worry about that. Ignore or block whoever you don't like, and otherwise participate. Come on and join my platform, brax.me. Okay? Thank you for watching, my friends, and I'll see you at the next broadcast sometime next week. Okay, bye bye. Can't even stop this.